Here's life advice coming in hot. I did a poor job of goal setting when it came to 2024 because what you're supposed to do with goals is set a specific goal and then break it down to the steps that need to be accomplished in order to get to that goal, and then break those steps down and figure out your weekly, monthly, daily actions to get you to your goal. I did none of that. I called it my growth year. It was my year of saying yes to everything, any meeting anybody proposed, any connection, any idea, any seminar, whatever it was. I was going to say yes, see what happened, take the lead.
Hello, welcome back to the Get Invested podcast. We are excited that you have decided to join us today. I am your host, Jordan Stone, joined by my co-host, Matthias Wilson, still in his void if you're watching this. If not, you can just imagine him floating in whiteness. His shirt is also white, so it's blending in, so it's really just more like a floating head. But we're floating head or no, we are here to talk some real estate and some life and some shenanigans per usual. So get started, Matthias. What's up? How's it going?
Going well. It's going well. As you can see, we haven't made any progress on the decorations. Had a sick kid this week. So that kind of puts a damper on any outside of the house to the office, mom and dad decorating stuff. He's good. Just had a little kind of low-grade fever. We think he might have had a really mild ear infection or something. Just a little cough, sniffly nose, and fever. Nothing major. You're back at school today, but no work has been done ever. I don't do anything. So that's where we are for now. But you've got some important things coming up.
That's true. I do. Before we jump into that, I did want to ask, when you suggested and or requested Jen to help you with this decorating project, where was her enthusiasm? Like, where one is like, I can't believe I married this man, to like 10, he knows exactly what I love to do, which is tell him what to do. Like, where was she at on that list?
It was probably a mild 6, I'd say.
Okay.
She does enjoy.
Okay, that's solid.
She
that's
does
solid.
enjoy. Yeah.
She's like, yeah, this is
I'm not
something
gonna
I
say,
have to do, but yeah.
It hasn't happened yet, so I'm not going to say she like immediately sprinted out of the house to run over here. But I think she's generally enjoys decorating, and she knows my tastes, and so it's pretty easy for her to, get something out of my mind and put it on a wall, I guess.
Yeah, and well, I think that this also offers an opportunity for her to kind of make that office at home a little bit more hers, right? Like, she'll have
100%.
room on those walls to put up some more of her stuff. Not that she doesn't love the Air Force, but she can just make some other choices.
No, for sure. We've talked about that as well. There's some things she wants to put up that once my stuff's out of the way.
Okay, all right. Well, so it's good. There's a mutual benefit there in more than one way.
For sure.
All right. Well, yeah, as he mentioned, I do have some like to say that this is a big milestone. I don't really know if I ascribe to that notion, but as you guys are listening to this, about a week ago, as we're recording, it's tomorrow, but as you're listening, it's probably about a little over a week ago, I turned the big 40. I know those of you watching are just taken aback. This guy, 40? No way. But yes, it is true. It is true. If I ever put my head down where you could see the top of my head, you'd definitely believe it. I am turning 40 tomorrow, and I was celebrating the cold weather by wearing this really, really heavy Hornets hoodie, which, if you think about it, considering we're in Charlotte, I'm not sure why they should ever make a really thick hoodie, but hey. It's actually cold enough here to wear it. So I have thrown it on because most of the time it's too warm. And it reminded me of one of my favorite birthday memories, which was today, 27 years ago, on December the 12th. My dad took me to see the Charlotte Hornets when the Chicago Bulls were visiting. And a certain individual named Michael Jordan was in his last year with the Bulls. So he had his the iconic 13s rocking, and it was, of course, going to be the third year of the second three-peat. This was the old stadium before they built Spectrum, and this is before the Hornets left the first time, and of course the name came back. Yeah, it was incredible. I mean, it was everything I could ask for. I love the Bulls and Michael Jordan, obviously, but of course, I was also a Hornets fan. Close game. Jordan played awesome. A bunch of iconic turnarounds, like right in front of me on my end of the court. Great seats because at that point there wasn't really too many bad seats. It wasn't that big of a stadium.
Yeah.
And we were upper deck, obviously, but we weren't that far away necessarily. But in the end, the Hornets pulled it in. I believe I pulled up the box score here, 79-77.
That seems really low for a NBA game.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah. Well, Chicago and Charlotte both actually were fairly decent defensive teams. You remember this was back before they got rid of hand checks and all of the offensive flow rules.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more banging. But yeah, and it was a close game, and they had a shot at the buzzer, I think, to tie it, and they missed, and so it was everything a 12-year-old Jordan could ask for. I wanted this list just for those to take those down memory lane that this might matter to. Here's a starting lineup for the Chicago Bulls. This is the Last Dance lineup if you watched on ESPN. Michael Jordan, Tony Kukoc, Dennis Rodman, Luke Longley, and Ron Harper. Coming off the bench, Steve Kerr and Bill Wennington are probably the two everyone remembers. Scott Burrell, good times. And then for the Hornets, one of the last times that we were actually, well respected in the league, Glenn Rice, Anthony Mason, Vlade Divac, whose son now is in whose son now is in his third year in the NBA.
Wow.
Bobby Phills and David Wesley, Dale Curry, who's now color commentating for the Hornets, and I guess everyone probably knows who his son is. Dale Curry, was coming off the bench at that point, and then famously BJ Armstrong, who played for the Bulls the first go around of Jordan at the Bulls, had switched teams at that point. Yeah, just taking me back. I guess I should tell my wife that this is, as far as level of memory and excitement, she's gonna have to match 12-year-old Jordan and just see what she has.
It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be real tough.
Yes, that's that's just what's on my mind, because I'm not really get into birthdays that much, but everyone's trying to make a little bit of a big deal about the 40, and Rachel loves to make big deals about things. But that was one that actually I remember. Honestly, how many of your birthdays do you actually remember?
I have no idea. I feel like March 28th has an amazing ability to fall in the middle of a week most of the time. So I don't think the math adds up on that, but it just seems that way. So I feel like
it moves every year.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it always seems like it was the middle of the week. So I don't feel like I did anything. I mean, granted, your story wasn't from actually on your birthday per se, but
sure, yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember. I really don't. And I'm sure my mom's going to get mad if she hears this, being like, we worked so hard to make your birthday special. I'm sure she did. I'm not a big, me, I'm not a big, nothing really moves the needle for me in terms of changing my general outlook in life. I'm pretty even keeled. So, I mean, I had great birthdays. I enjoyed it. I've had lots of cool things and gifts and stuff, I'm sure, but it's not I don't know. I don't really remember any specific one. Also, nothing's going on in March 28th, except for potentially March Madness. But
although your team has got to be making a late run to be really engaged. Yeah.
It was a thing, but it's just never worked out. That I've been deployed for my birthday many times. So not necessarily the most fun you can have. It's just about maybe in 2 years when I turn 40 to join you. Geriatrics.
Okay, a year and 4 months. Okay, all right. Okay, let's not.
I'm only 38. I don't know. That's 2 years from 40. I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly. Right now, I'm 39. But Rachel's been getting mad at me because I've already rounded up. I keep telling people I'm 40. I'm like, it's a month away. Or if I'm rounding, he's like, why are you rounding at all? It's because it's easier to say 40 than 39. And she's like, that's not a thing. People don't do that. I'm like, I mean, I do. Especially when I'm getting on my 25-year-old soccer teammates.
Oh yeah, you got to round up when you do something good.
Look, why are you
do
slowing down and not hustling? Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'm like, bro, I'm 40. This is the best I can do. Exactly. Obviously. Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, it works out every time.
It's a crutch. I will say, it's a tool.
I don't think you ended up staying over the night. That one of my birthdays I do remember, and most of them are positive. I remember my 21st. I remember my 30th. And there's a couple other I remember. I remember the birthday. I don't remember which birthday it is, if that makes sense. Like I remember the experience, but I don't remember if it was like 33 or 36 or I do remember
Yeah,
noting
sure.
that I had made it to the same age as Christ when I turned 33. That's all I remember that birthday. But I was like, guys, I don't know. Am I gonna outlive him?
Yeah.
But
You did.
I made it. But no, I had a bunch of pizza and like red soda or something when I was like 7 or 8, and then like got sick. And instead of like, I started throwing up in my bed and tried to run to the bathroom. So instead of my parents just having to like clean up like my sheets, they had to like clean up like the hallway
Betrayal.
and the toilet and the bathroom. I remember we had to borrow like an actual like wet vac or a carpet cleaner thing.
Yeah, like a steam vac thing.
Yeah, exactly, because it was that bad.
I don't remember
but
that.
the birthday was clearly epic. I just, ate too much stuff and then ran around too much.
As you're wont to do at that age.
Yeah. I don't foresee any throwing up in my future after birthdays, but let's hope not, at least. Tomorrow is also Friday the 3rd. So
I do know that.
So I don't know. Maybe our meal will be cursed. Who knows? I'm not triskaidekaphobic, so I say boo to you.
Or another way to say that is logical. I'm logical.
Yep. The 13th. It's just one more day. Yep. And just for everybody out there, Matthias does actually know how a calendar works. I'm pretty sure he does. So his birthday obviously has fallen on weekends.
You can't prove anything.
His birthday is a football score. That's always an easy way to remember it. I like that.
Pretty lopsided one. A pretty iconic Super Bowl score, though.
A pretty iconic Super Bowl point collapse as well.
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
Do you remember the year I called you on your birthday for something completely separate and had completely forgotten that it was your birthday?
I do remember that. I do remember having a whole conversation about something and going, and I figured out pretty quick he doesn't know, because I just, whenever it's called, it's my birthday. And then, very quickly it was evident that you just, I don't even remember who knows what the heck it was, but just to talk about something, and we were talking about it, and I was like, pretty quick, I was like, sweet, he has no idea. And then it was either the next day or later that day, you were like, man, like, no,
I think
back,
I said
the whole conversation.
Like, yeah, I think it was
did the whole conversation.
I remember it being at the end of that call. I think I said something dumb like, "Oh man, are you at a party right now? What's happening? Like, it's loud back there." And then you were like, "Yeah, bro, it's my birthday."
That's so funny. I didn't remember that part. I remember thinking in the beginning of the conversation, like, "Oh, he has no idea."
Honestly, it could have happened more than once. It's possible.
That could be.
It's possible.
I know it's happened. I think it's happened the other way around too, where I call you on like the 14th and go, "Happy birthday." I know it's the 13th, but I'm going to pretend like I forgot and it's the 14th. There was a time that I wasn't sure if it was the 13th or the 14th, because I have that thought in my mind like one time I convinced myself that in order to not say I forgot your birthday, I just forgot which day it was to the 14th somehow in my mind. And now, like, there was a good 10-year period where I was like, had to sit and think about it to make sure it was like, hey, no, it's actually
there's like
13th.
Just certain things that like you have to like remind yourself of. Like, yeah, there's certain dates that it's that way for me, and there's certain dates that it's not, and it has nothing to do with like how close that person is to me. It's just like which sticks in my mind and which doesn't. Anyway, yeah. All right. Well, I mean, that's a lot of birthday reminiscing. So perhaps maybe we should move on to more pertinent things. Loki's shown up to tell me to move it along. She's giving me the wrap it up signal.
Well, in a way, reminiscing is kind of the theme of today, though, right? Since we're going to talk about basically the year that was 2024 as kind of our end of the year. This is what happened this year kind of podcast.
That is true. It is reminiscing is on brand, I suppose, or on message in a way, because we are looking back, not so much at our lives, but the year in review for Capital Velocity Investments. And just want to talk about what we've learned, maybe some funny failures, some hurdles, and also just kind of like, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say we're going to give life advice or business advice, but it is kind of interesting how some of these things played out. So, I mean, I think I
Yeah.
got to turn it over to you. Get this started.
Yeah. So I'd say that here's life advice coming in hot early. I did a poor job of goal setting when it came to 2024. We've done family goals and business goals pretty regularly each year, but for whatever reason, I don't know. I don't even remember what was going on at the end of last year. But for whatever reason, didn't really do any solid goal setting, because what you're supposed to do with goals is set a specific goal and then break it down to like, hey, what are the steps that need to be accomplished in order to get to that goal, and then break those steps down and figure out, like, your weekly, monthly, daily, even actions that you need to undertake to get to each of those steps that will eventually get you to your goal. I did none of that. I just knew that I wanted to do 2024. I called it my growth year. I wanted it to be, let's see how much we can grow. And when I say we, it was just me at the time. Well, obviously Jen, but just us at the time. How much can we grow in the year 2024? And I didn't even really know, like, I didn't define what growth meant. So does it mean more buying a whole bunch more properties? Maybe. Does it mean, expanding the outreach? I don't know. So I really just said I want to focus. It was my year of saying yes to everything, and like any meeting anybody proposed, any connection, any idea, any seminar, whatever it was, I was going to say yes. Just going to see what happened. Kind of take the leap. This is going to be my yes, like the movie The Yes Man. The yes.
Yeah, we talked about
the
that.
Yes
You were
year.
Jim Carrey, but Zoe Deschanel need not apply.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. So that's kind of what started it. I mean, it really kicked off back in February. Like, even before that, in like January, I listen to podcasts a lot of time, and every now and then I drop into old podcasts that I don't, from back when I was like learning kind of the real estate investing. And I was listening to a podcast, and they had a guest on who was talking about posting on LinkedIn and how much capital is out there on LinkedIn in terms of potential investors and the connections that you can build on LinkedIn that you can leverage to, you know, build your investor base, go after properties, etc. So I was like, well, if I'm going to grow, I'm definitely going to need investors. So I'll figure out what this is about. So I sent those dudes an email. The guy who came on the host, I don't even remember what podcast it was that came on the host podcast. I sent the guest an email. Was like, hey, I'm intrigued. Got on a call with him. Kind of hit it off. He was a military dude who raised a little bit of capital while he's still active duty. Obviously wasn't active duty anymore, but he had a couple of partners that had, one from finance, one that was more of a ghostwriter type. So they had an interesting dynamic between the three of them. But basically, that's what kicked it off. I was just like, okay, cool. Jumped on the call. He said, hey, we're working on this program where we teach you how to put yourself out there on LinkedIn, how to get content, what the goals are of the posting, and that forced me to kind of focus myself a little bit more than, I just want to grow, to, hey, I want to build engagement and I want to build trust with potential investors, that kind of thing. So they kind of helped structure that. They taught me how to utilize the algorithm of LinkedIn, basically what the algorithm responds to, what it doesn't respond to, and how to engage with people and that kind of thing. And kind of that's initially what started it all, I'd say, this year.
Yeah, and we were talking earlier that, or we saw, you looked up earlier, was you started this in early March, right? Just the first post,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I have it pulled up over here.
Or first post of this. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd posted occasionally, and we were talking about this. So I probably had 250 connections, maybe 200, 300 somewhere. No, I didn't even have that. I take that back. I think I had like 150 to 200 initially before I did any posting. And on Monday, March 4th, I posted for the first time after like hiring these guys to teach me how to do this. And I got 127 impressions on Monday, March 4th. But by Tuesday, I had increased it all the way down to 95. So, but next week I was up in the thousands.
There you go. We have, as much as we have come to understand the LinkedIn algorithm, it still has its mysteries, for sure.
Well, I still, like, today's newsletter sharing, I think, has like 250 impressions. So like that's not a whole lot has changed. But I will say over the year, the last 365 days, and trust me, there were zero before March 4th. Literally, there's zero every day. 850,000 impressions over the course of the year from that started, which is an increase of over 1,000,000%.
Well, there you go. The good thing about growth is if
When
it
you start at
starts, if you
0,
got, yeah, we've got
it's a
very
pretty steep
little.
curve, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. In the teaching game, it's always, if you're going to be teaching the lower level kids, you're like, what, you're expecting to have more growth because they got way more to go.
Yeah.
So
Not a
million and a
room to
half
run, per
percent. There
se.
you go. I mean, to put that in perspective, 850,000 impressions, that's almost like you imprinted an impression on almost every single person in Charlotte. Not quite, but close.
Just walked around and showed him a picture.
Yeah, like, here, look at this. Look at this. Exactly. Yeah. So, by the way, for anybody who's watching, Loki's joined the podcast, and I've had to go mobile with the microphone because it was in her way. But, well, so I'm interested to know. Honestly, I don't even remember really, because obviously we talked about this when I was talking about helping you out. But what were your first thoughts about the LinkedIn thing? Like, was there a moment where you're like, these guys don't know what they're talking about, or was it immediately like, oh wow, I can't believe this, or was it? What were your first thoughts of, like, the first month of doing it?
One of my skills, I would say, is that I'm pretty coachable, and I'll believe what you tell me, and I'll do what you tell me to do. So I trusted them. I was like, hey, I mean, why would they be going on podcasts talking about this if it didn't work? Like to me, it's just like, well, if I'm going to pay these guys to do this, I'm going to do what they tell me, and I'm gonna give it a good college try. And I'd say by the first month, I was like, wow, I'm kind of shocked. I'm looking at, okay, so let's say April 4th, I had 796 impressions, and I was averaging, 600 impressions a day. Then compared to the 0.2 and a half that I was getting before that, it kind of made sense.
Well, right. But I mean, as we know, impressions is only one metric, and it's not necessarily the most accurate as far as efficacy goes. I mean, had you made any contacts that you were excited about by that point?
Not necessarily the first month.
Yeah.
I was definitely, I don't remember exactly. I don't have all the graphs in front of me, but basically I do remember thinking that, one, it's a little bit of a proof of concept, because I mean, impressions are the easiest thing to track over time. So like seeing, hey, there are more eyeballs regularly seeing stuff from me that I've never had before. I mean, I'm not a social media guy, so anything over 100 impressions, I'm like, whoa, crazy amount of people have seen this. Since then, obviously, it's changed, but I had Monday, May 6th. So what was that? 3 months. That was the first Chiefs viral post. So literally within 3 months, I was getting in front. I mean, by the way, today it has 210,000 impressions. So like it was good, because by then, even before going viral, I was making connections with people that were really like-minded, potential investors, but also just other people who do what I do, which was providing a whole lot of value, like we'll talk about in a minute, to my business in other ways, like completely outside of getting me in front of other more and more eyeballs. Connections that ended up bringing deals my way. I'd already met Marv by the Chiefs post and been on a call with him, I think. So basically, as anybody who does social media, you'll find that if you start getting in front of a bunch of eyeballs, you'll get DMs and emails from all kinds of people about all kinds of stuff. So I said yes to a lot of, I was answering everybody's DMs, just being like, yeah, sure, let's get on a call. And, a whole bunch of people are trying to sell me on something that does not even come close to applying. But there was plenty of gold mixed with the lumps of coal in there, so that it was more than worth the time and effort it took.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting for us at our age, since we started this off with age being the conversation, because we kind of grew up as social media. I don't want to say grew up, because I don't think it's necessarily getting more mature, but as it evolved,
became widespread,
right? Yeah, because when we were in high school, it was not a thing. The only thing there was AIM chat, AOL Instant Messenger, and you could leave away messages, and that was about the only thing. Right. And then that was pretty much it until into college for me was when, there was MySpace, but come on, and Friendster, and then Facebook.
I was never on either of those. Yeah, I remember Facebook coming out while I was in college.
Yeah. Facebook came out, and then basically everything that everyone thinks about as social media now wasn't really started until I was, already working or in grad school, and same thing for you.
Yeah.
So, and then now there being like a business version of that. It's interesting to me, I guess, because you think about building a business on social media, and you think about these just just like, oh God, influencers or some just nonsense like that everyone just, unless you really
Yeah.
love that kind of thing, everyone else is just like, ugh. And most of the people our age are like, but this is
Yeah.
just not that, right? This is just another way now. Like the Rolodex is gone, right? So this is how you build that Rolodex. But I think it's interesting to me because so many other people, as you mentioned earlier, but when we were off air, like you said, I mean, that's everyone gets on LinkedIn normally to get a job. And you said it was a thing in the Air Force as well, just to go ahead and get that started. So when you got out,
Yeah. You'd have
you could get
connections
a
to
job.
leverage to, yeah, exactly.
But you discovered that no, I'm not going to use it to get a job. I'm going to use it to build the job I gave myself.
Sure.
But you're not the only one that's doing that. But a lot of people, it is it becomes marketing, but it also becomes networking. We've talked about how that word gets a dirty rap when it really,
No, I agree. But that's kind of what it really did is, so again, I had no defined goal. I just wanted to grow in 2024. But as the year went on and growth actually started to occur, it's interesting how it forced me to focus. In order to grow, I was going to need to accomplish, multiple things, and it was almost backed into those steps I needed to take to be able to accomplish the growth versus starting with the steps and getting the growth. I achieved growth, but I didn't have any infrastructure to surround it. And that kind of takes us to the next phase. Like, so, okay, I'm definitely seeing some traction on LinkedIn. I'm seeing a lot of, I'm building followers. I went from like, 200 followers, let's call it, at the beginning, to after that Thief's post, I probably gained 400 followers, 400, 500 followers just from that week of that thing going viral. So now I'm getting close to like, 700 followers, which is it's nothing, but there's a huge amount of growth. And I'm going, okay, well, if I'm going to convert any of this into, having them become investors or even, build partnerships with people, I'm going to need to figure out how to keep track of all this, because that's now I'm being maxed out, because I'm also still running, the business as it was, the properties that we have, accounting, managing, doing the day-to-day operations of the property. So I'm like, okay, this is cool, but I also need to figure out, I need to be a little more intentional now, now that if I'm going to continue growing and capture this growth instead of just a flare up in the beginning of the year. That's when I started kind of really understanding that I was going to need to systematize a little bit, and I was going to need to automate a little bit, which is where a lot of that is where kind of you came in. I'd say initially the LinkedIn guys showed me, hey, this is kind of how you make this LinkedIn growth worthwhile. You need to have a list, an email list, a place where you can call your own, that you own, and you don't need a social media site to attract investors. So if I have an email list, okay, cool. So the typical way to do that is a newsletter, and that's what spawned the Substack, the newsletter. And then that's where you came in.
Yeah, I mean, I got to say that Substack just in general is quite the interesting phenomenon, just in all the ways that, I've interacted with it since we started this and started the newsletter. I mean, just the people who are on it, it's so interesting. It just runs the gamut, and people use it for so many different things. It's funny that they're clearly marketing it when they push things like, this is social media for people who want to share real ideas and not to be like quick
Yeah.
takes and retweets
sure.
and all of that. And honestly, I got to say, for the most part, that's exactly what it is. So yeah, it's been a pretty cool experience. I gotta say, sometimes the simplicity of the site frustrates me, but I understand why they keep it that way. It's all about the content. So yeah, I had honestly, I gotta say, I think I had heard people mention that Substack was a thing, and that was about it. So I was obviously excited to jump on and help, but that was before I was all on board. It was just to help. But yeah, I think that's what you said there, though, right? Is what I was kind of talking about earlier, is that the Substack list is that step towards the old school, like, Rolodex, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, I'm getting my name out there on LinkedIn, but it can only do so much. I gotta
Mm-hmm.
move to the next step. But that's just, and that's kind of cool. I would say that yes, it is very good, and obviously it's a positive thing to like set goals and then figure out the steps to get there. But I think a lot of people maybe get stuck trying to figure out all the steps to get somewhere rather than just trying and figuring out some of those steps along the way. Or conversely, they have all the steps they think are going to get there. They start doing it and find out they need to go another direction, and they either change or sometimes get stuck trying to do it the way that they planned rather than the way that's working.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
I think organically I'm heading towards something and I'm going to be cognizant. I mean, it's one way to do it. I guess it's a way to plan. I don't know. It's kind of that same thing as fake it till you make it. No one's really saying you don't know what you're doing. You're just saying, you have to accomplish something at some point to be able to say you accomplished something.
Yeah, I think that's another skill set or tool or whatever I have, is that I'm willing to do a lot. I'll try it. I'll figure it out. I'm willing to gamble on myself a little bit in terms of, okay, I want to grow a company. I don't really know how to grow a company, but I'm going to set out and I'm going to do it. Here's a way. It's almost like a scattergun approach initially. I'm just like, sure, I'll try this. What is this? I'll do it. I do it. Hey, this is actually, if I combine this cool thing with this cool thing, I can actually see how that could legitimately, be a plan to grow to. And that's I'd say that's definitely how this year kind of played out, because I've never wanted to have a CRM system before where I have a list of like, hey, this is the date I talked to this guy, this is the date I talked to that lady, that I need to reach back out within this amount of time, or here's how to mass contact a whole bunch of people. I never wanted to be in any way involved in that, but once I started, hey, if my goal is to grow, I need to be able to do that, because there's just not enough hours in the day. I need to be able. I love talking one-on-one with investors, but there's a whole bunch of other things that communication needs to happen in order to get that investor, either potential investor or investor that I've known for a long time, I just need to touch base with. There's a lot that needs to go on in order for me to be able to have those conversations one-on-one. And the more I can automate all that, the better I am. And that's the growth I was looking for, that I didn't know I was looking for, is figuring out how to have these systems and these, the software, all the different programs and stuff in place, the Substack where I can send out the newsletter and talk to everybody once a week. And eventually the podcast to where, people can see our lovely faces and mine in space, where like all those things require a infrastructure to be able to do, and I never had any infrastructure. So that was like I backed into growing the infrastructure by having the kind of the organic growth from the the impressions and the engagement, and just making new connections and meeting new people. But it definitely wasn't planned that way, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a number of thoughts on that. It would seem to me first that it was kind of natural in a way for you to go this route, because it was something that you had done in one way on a smaller scale, just you and Jen, kind of, for lack of a better term, as a side hustle. And then so you kind of knew those pieces, but turning it into something that you can, the phrase they love to use these days is, scale.
Yep.
Right, that's a completely different
Which
thing.
is what it is. Yeah.
And look, first of all, the older I get and the more I've had to run things or, get things done or whatever it is, manage a bunch of people or children, the more I have, you become so aware of all those things that none of us really like logistics and standardization are so key. I mean, it's, it's a game changer, and it can save you so much time and energy and headache to be able to do that. But it's not easy. Sure, it can be boring, but it doesn't mean it's easy or not worthwhile. I mean,
Yeah.
it reminds me, it's just, standardization gets a bad rap, but standardization is the reason why we can all do so many things at the same time. Can you imagine?
All at the same time without chaos.
Yeah. Can you imagine trying to go to a Lowe's where everything in there isn't set to a standard? Like, I need this nail. Oh, well, you'll have to fish through and find the one that's the right one for you. Or I need this screw. Like, I mean, that's
we have
how.
A nail bin over there and a nail bin over there.
Yeah. It's like, oh, all these houses look exactly the same. Yeah, but they built one and you can buy it. Like, rather than you have to build one by your hand by yourself. So, I mean, that has been interesting. It's something that I actually, what's funny is people don't think about this. I don't think at all, but from teaching high school, you have to have, your organization has to be next level, and you have to anticipate the things that teenagers are going to do or need or think they need or say. Yeah. So, I mean, and this has been a transition for me for sure, trying to figure out, okay, like, I can put steps together. I can put spreadsheets together. I can do the logic, but now we got to do it, in a completely different way, whether that be moving them, getting things communicated through our CRM. That was the next step after we got the newsletter going, setting that up, the interaction between the two. I don't think it was, well, first of all, you said I didn't know how to grow a business. I don't think anybody knows how to grow a business until they grow a business. I think they've read about other people who've grown businesses.
But each business is unique. That's the whole point, right?
Exactly. I think they know how other people grew their business. Exactly. Yeah. They know how other people grew businesses, and maybe they can adapt things from that. But
yeah, 100%. I would definitely agree with that, and I don't think anybody else would. Well, I wouldn't recommend following exactly what I've done, but you know what I mean. Like, it just probably not everything would apply exactly the same way. Everything's unique, but yeah, but I think the cool part is that I would say come middle of the year, after a few months of LinkedIn, a few months of the newsletter, a few months of saying yes, connecting, I'd already made connections, and then that like halfway through the year, June, July is when Vanna came around, when Viera came around, and it was the best investment opportunity I'd ever seen, or I'd ever had a chance to participate in. And I was like, man, this is pretty awesome. That's not what I had in mind. I didn't think I was going to partner with some people for a $40 million property in Savannah. I really was just like saying yes to connections, and then those connections introduced me to more connections, and I hit it off with those people, and next thing you know, there's a real good opportunity that I've never been able to present that quality of opportunity to investors before, essentially. And I was nervous to do it, but because I didn't think I had the firepower. I mean, we raised $21.5 million for that thing, and I had no idea, with a minimum of $100,000, how many of my investors were going to be able to play. But what ended up making my decision was basically, this is just too good of an opportunity not to at least give to the people that I know that I've been trying to help and provide good opportunities to. I knew I was going to invest one way or another, but I was like, in the debate on whether or not to bring it to people is basically like, it's too good to pass up. I don't know when I'm going to have this opportunity again. So, halfway through the year, we're already working on the biggest deal I'd ever been a part of and the highest quality, and it was kind of off to the races there.
Yeah, I mean, I think honestly, I guess it's kind of a cliche, but for a reason. But I mean, it's just very clear that there was reward. You were rewarded for trying and putting yourself out there and doing something, right? Trying something that you hadn't tried before, and being able to take the risk, even if the risk was like not meeting a goal, I suppose, but it was still a risk of like seeing how much you could do as far as raising the money goes.
Yeah, I think that I mean, if there's any key takeaways that you always do at the end of the podcast, I think if there's any for this, obviously there's not a whole lot of in-depth, technical real estate investing advice that we're passing on here, but basically I'd say, in as little as a year, less than a year, because it wasn't like till March 4th when I started posting, and really that was the first action I took on this kind of journey of growth through the years. I had no idea what was coming, but I was pretty sure something good would happen if I just started doing it. So I'd say the key takeaway is just start doing it. That something's either, you don't know how beneficial something's going to be, you don't know what all you're going to accomplish with it, and obviously there's going to be branch outs along the way. Once you get started, there's a whole bunch of, like, obviously it forced me to do a whole bunch of other stuff if I was going to keep the momentum going and be able to capture the takeaway is just to get started. Just do it. It doesn't have to. You don't have to.
I think that's a pretty famous phrase I've heard. I think I've heard that one before.
Yeah, but I mean, it's so true. And it's like, hey, you're never gonna do anything if you don't get started, because everybody can make the best plans and set the most specific goals, but if you spend all day pontificating about what the goals are going to be and how awesome it's going to be, and you never actually do anything and just start and figure it out as you go, then you're going to miss out all the potential gains that you don't even know exist. Oh, yeah. I didn't know exist.
Yeah, I mean, 50. That old saying, 50% of the battle is starting. I used to tell my kids this all the time. It was teaching writing is a very weird thing, right? Because people get in their head about writing a lot, even if they don't supposedly care about writing or no. reading, or there's just not a big part of their
Sure.
thinking about the written word. It's not a big thing. They still get it because it's always so personal to us. But I'm just like, the best thing they could ever learn is like, let yourself write a first shitty draft. Just put all of it down. It's gonna suck. It's fine. No one writes like the perfect thing the first time. Like anything you've ever read, there was like 13 other drafts that were not as good, right? So just put it down. So I mean, it's that for everything. I know even in a small amount, like talking about our specific systems, I get all caught up. I'm like, okay, is this phrased correctly? Is this going to go out to exactly the people I want it to go out to? Is it going to be clear? Are they going to be able to interact with it the way they want? And then next thing you know, like the other day, I'm sending out a follow-up email that says, oops,
Yep,
do it this way instead.
A key point on that, though, is something that I've once, specifically to the newsletter, writing is so much easier, I've found, when I'm confident that somebody else is going to read it and edit it before anybody else is. So like it's so much easier for me to throw a rough draft out there every newsletter, because I know I don't care about the spelling. I do care. Bad example. I do care about spelling. It drives me nuts. But I don't care about punctuation. I don't care about run-on sentences even, because I know that I'm getting my thoughts out, and it's a lot easier to just get it all out there and put it all down so it's captured, and then we can go back and make it look pretty later. And knowing that somebody else is going to immediately follow along, it makes it so much easier for me to write that draft. And it's kind of the same way when you're putting something in the CRM, you just put Matthias puts words here, or or you type a draft of what you think I'm going to say. It's like, it's so much easier to just, the structure's there. I just go in and go, let's tweak this word around. We don't want to say that. We do want to say this.
Yeah.
And the teamwork on that makes it so much easier, in my opinion.
I feel like when I'm writing my drafts for like the CRM emails or whatever, the ones that typically I write some like mock-up thing, and then you're the one that you want very specific language based on investment money particulars. That I don't know if have you ever read the comic Strange Planet? It's where you should look them up they're all over the internet, but it's these aliens like just dealing with the everyday mundanity of life, but they're describing it and just like, because it's not humans, and it's just like, everything is just like very different. Like they just see it in this completely different way. I feel like I'm doing that all the time. I'm like, this sentence for the money, and then it's like this sentence about how to I'm just describing what it should be, right? Like rather than what it is. I'm like, this is where we say something about what they need to do, or like stuff like that. If anybody who is listening knows Strange Planet, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, because everything is just like very literal. There's no like metaphors. It's like, exercising is like, I'm moving limbs and, stuff like that. So that's why I feel like I'm typing. No, I mean, it's a great system. I got to say, most of the time I know exactly what you're trying to say, no matter how jumbled it is, except every once in a while I, run on sentences a little more, and I'm like, there's like 3 things here, I think. But yeah, I mean, that's either partner support and just also knowing that, like,
there's value in getting as long as you just paper, you can make it look getting pretty it out later.
There. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, or clarify, not even just make pretty, but like, okay, I got it out. And then now I need to figure out, that's what I was thinking in my head. Like, how do I actually want to translate? The famous, it's probably apocryphal, but the famous quote is from this famous author, E.M. Forster, who said, how do I know what I think until I see what I write? But that's actually pretty true, because the way that we think about it in here is very different than translating it to language. This is neurons. This is language. So, it's very, you can think about that as just like a general life advice, honestly. This is neurons, this is language. Like everything is like, you got to get it started some form or function or fashion, excuse me. So I think the last piece we're pretty much there, but the last piece has been, we also got this investor portal, which is just one more system, and then trying to integrate all the systems. I think it's the investor portal has been the most amusing to me, I think, simply because it has produced the most one-on-one interactions for me, because you typically are the one communicating with clients. And that is primarily because my father is an investor. And so he just up and calls me if ever he has an issue with the portal. So, we definitely have one beta tester. We probably need a few more. You need to diversify our demographic. We have one
70-year-old man.
Yeah, we have one 70-year-old man, which is a good demographic.
Make it work.
Yeah,
if
exactly.
He can make it work, anybody can, right? Yeah.
but I've never had to answer in this business, this particular one, so many questions with, I'll have to circle back to you. I'll have to circle. I'll have to.
Yeah, I mean, working through our first official rate, like obviously we imported all the old properties, the existing properties that we've owned for a while, and that was quite the process. Introducing it because everything was manual prior to that. So introducing all the investors to the new portal and the new processes and how to, which once everything gets ironed out, it's super smooth and easy and saves a lot of time and allows me to focus on the real value add activities. But now we're doing our first raise with it, and the same kind of learning curve. Me learning how to make it as easy as possible for the investors to click through, sign up, submit funds, all those things. Definitely, I look forward to the streamlined version of all these things. We're learning everything. Your growth means learning, so we're doing a lot of that. But at some point, we'll get everything streamlined where it'll be real simple for not only me but the investors and the interactions and interfaces that we have.
Yeah, I mean, remember how many different times we went through trying to get the documents exactly right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you clicked, it went to exactly the right place for the exact type of investor that
Yep.
was. Yeah, that was. Well, no, it's just funny that I never. I don't think I've said this to my dad yet, but I wanted to be like, you remember that, like, we just started this, right? Like, this is the first time. Like, I don't want to make excuses because, of course, we're gonna figure it out. But I'm like, of all the people who should be aware.
Yeah, it's like walking into a Walmart and saying, "Hey, I have a certain set level of expectations for what's going to happen inside this Walmart." Whereas if it's a brand new building with a new sign on the door and something you've never heard of before, and you walk in and go, "Why isn't this being run like Walmart?" It's like, man, we're working on it.
I mean, yeah, it's just like, yeah, exactly, because that's true. You walk into some kind of independent artisanal store or whatever, you're gonna go with the flow, right? Like, it's like that's the big experience. Not that we want necessary investors to expect like they're just gonna have to go. I don't need
a bespoke investing experience. I'm trying to streamline it, but it is almost unrealistic to think it's going to happen right off the bat. That being said, we're working on it, Mr. Stone. We're working on it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they're not bespoke, but there are definitely particulars we are working on for each type of investor, and I think that's one of the things that, I mean, we have to embrace, and hopefully, I think it was in the newsletter too, like our listeners and our investors will embrace, is that, scrappy startup, sure, but we're getting it together, but also we're trying to do something a little different than a lot of other people are doing. And I think that's what excites both of us. But I think the only place to finish this, though, is just, we've been friends for a long time, but we've never worked together. So any reflections on a year of, well, no, more like, I guess, more like 8-ish months of working together. By the way, we did skip over, the podcast started at the end of June.
Okay.
Our first episode was filmed in Atlanta at the end of June during my bachelor party weekend.
That's right.
So that was, obviously just an extension of the Substack. And I don't know how much it's filtered into the pipeline we're trying to build, but it's been fun.
It's there. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the key, is that if I have to, having somebody that I obviously have gotten along with my entire life, if I'm going to choose to work with somebody, it's probably going to be, that's about as good as it gets, I suppose. The other parts is that it makes it, the productivity can be an issue, I've noticed, like, because we do tend to talk about, as case in point, at the beginning of this episode, but so staying on topic and preserving some of that time can be difficult. But other than that, I mean, but that's only because it's so much fun to just sit around and talk about stuff and pontificate. And but also that's where really good ideas, I think, come from too, is when we kind of sit around and jaw about a particular problem or something we're working on. So it's cool to have that relationship where we can, obviously there's a huge comfort level, so we can just say whatever ideas pop into our head, and there's no, like, I can't imagine being nervous to say something. Maybe the last time I was nervous to say something to you was maybe around age 4.5. I don't know.
who would remember at that point?
Exactly.
I know that we can't get off on tangents. Usually they start with work and then but you're right. I think it's funny. We don't actually, believe it or not, guys, we don't talk that much. Well, we send messages back and forth, but we don't meet that much to talk because we're in different places doing different things. But I do think that it's funny that the whole bugaboo of all corporate structures or corporate day-to-day stuff is like, how many meetings do you need to have,
Mhm.
right? How much communication do you need to have?
Wasn't the Air Force
And
for
definitely
sure.
you could have way too many meetings, but at the same time, it's interesting to think about it in terms of when we really rarely just have a conversation, other than texting or messaging, where I think a lot of times when we finally do get face to face, that's when like some things will definitely come out. And now maybe some of
Sure.
that time we were joking, but yeah, so it's an interesting balance. I know for me, sometimes you're literally the only adult I talk to that day before Rachel gets home. So that's probably on me. But
Yeah.
anywho, speaking of talking, we've talked too much.
Agreed.
So probably should wrap it up there. Hope you guys enjoyed us reflecting. Maybe it could in some way affect something you could apply to yourself, or maybe you just understand where we are a little bit better, or maybe you had some laughs, or maybe you just enjoyed watching Loki be cute on my lap here. But we're gonna get out of here now. We really appreciate you hanging out with us, and as always, if you would restack, 5-star, like, and please comment, say things, even snarky things. We want all of it. We would appreciate it. And other than that, we will catch you next week. This has been Get Invested Podcast.
See you later.
Bye.